and U.S. society to the sidelines in Cuba itself. And so if the policy of isolation has failed, and I think it pretty clearly has, the question is, what about a policy of engagement? Now, no one thinks a policy of engagement is a magic solution to the human rights problem in Cuba, but I think it's clear that historically, periods of engagement with Cuba are periods in which we have seen political relaxation, and particularly the release of prisoners. Under President Carter, during the time Pope John Paul II visited, during the 2012 talks with the Church and the Spanish government, all three of them saw significant prisoner releases. And just this past month, following the extensive talks between Cuba and the U.S. government, 53 political prisoners were released, completing the release of everybody on Amnesty International's list of prisoners of conscience. So I think other international actors as well, the government of Spain, the government of Canada, the government of Norway, a number of international groups, including European churches, have seen specific benefits to efforts they've made for engagement with the Cuban government rather than policies of isolation. I think beyond the dialogue with Cuban officials, I think there's some really important things that greater engagement will do. It will help reformers inside the Cuban system. It will provide them more space and opportunity. It will benefit Cuban families and the Cubans who interact with people and people-to-people travelers. It's going to benefit religious interaction and expand contact between U.S. and Cuban churches. Telecommunications is going to offer new opportunities for Internet access and information on the island. So overall, I think it's pretty clear that the policy of engagement is likely to expand family visits and remittances, assist a small but growing private sector, increase cultural and religious contacts, and help Cubans connect to the outside world. And if the United States is interested in helping ordinary Cubans and promoting democratic values, that's the path we ought to pursue. We shouldn't be naive in our expectations about Cuba's political leadership. This is the beginning, though, of a long-term process to reduce tension between the governments and build bridges between the American and Cuban people. Over time, that's going to help empower Cuban citizens and open political space on the island. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We're joined by a member of the subcommittee who had a previous engagement at the opening part of this hearing, Mr. Clausen, a gentleman from Florida. So I yield time for his opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you for coming today. Mr. Thale, I want to start by thanking you for coming. I just want to say for the record, I'm in a bit of a disagreement here. I think that if foreign direct investment was a good way to get these folks to come around, we would be in a better place right now. The Spaniards have had nice hotels on Varadero for a long time, and it just hasn't had enough of an impact. And so I'm worried that we are just casting a lifeline to folks, to murderous folks that were really about to go under. For Señor García, Señora Soler, y Señora Fonseca, bienvenidos aquí. Gracias por venir. Y sobre todo, gracias por su sacrificio. Si he entendido bien, están diciendo hoy, Cuba sí, Castro no. La gente cubana sí. El gobierno de Castro no. La libertad sí. Y la represión no. En mi país se dice que vamos a perder la libertad misma aquí si no estamos dispuestos para pelear y luchar para esa libertad. Y en ese sentido, yo creo que ustedes son el mejor ejemplo para nosotros. Un ejemplo no solamente para la gente de tu país, pero para nosotros también. Que hay que luchar para la libertad, para tenerlo para siempre. Entonces, you have my full admiration, my full respect, el respeto total, for what you are doing in the fight that you are waging. No, an example, no, not only for your country, but for my countrymen as well. And anything that I can do to help you in this sacred fight, I am willing and enthusiastic to do so. I'm so sad, sometimes brokenhearted, for your suffering and your injuries. And I can't imagine what it would be like. Para mí parece una tristeza inconsolable And so I want to tell you wholeheartedly how much I support what you are doing. Y cualquier cosa que yo pueda hacer para ayudarles, estoy dispuesto a hacerlo. Gracias por venir aquí.
Mr. Clausen, thank you so very, very much. If you'd like to respond, but Ms. Bass does have a plane to catch and asked if she could say a few words.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank the witnesses for their testimony. I had a couple of questions. I sit on the board of the National Endowment for Democracy, and there's about 27 organizations that are funded to help with activists in Cuba. Some of the organizations are funded in Cuba, and some of them are funded in Miami. And I just wondered, one, if you thought that the funding was helpful. And then also, the three of you are here today, and I just wondered how you were able to come. Are you here for a long time, or how you were able to get out of Cuba? Do you travel back and forth? Those are the questions I wanted to ask the three of you, and then I would like to direct a question to the other witness.
Así yo traduzco.
Sí,
Yes.
por supuesto que todo tipo de ayuda que se reciba en Cuba para la oposición es muy importante.
All types of aid received by the opposition in Cuba is very important.
Yo puedo decirles que gracias a la ayuda que se recibe en Cuba, en muchas ocasiones se ha podido salvar una vida.
I can tell you that thanks to the aid we have received in Cuba, we've been able to save at least one life.
Y voy a poner un ejemplo.
And I'll give you an example.
Cuando usted tiene un teléfono celular en la mano, tiene un arma para defenderse.
When you have a cell phone in your hand, you have a weapon with which to defend yourself.
Sin esa ayuda sería imposible para un cubano de a pie adquirirlo.
Without the aid we get from abroad, we couldn't pay for that cell phone.
En muchas ocasiones se ha corrido la voz de un lado al otro de la isla reclamando la libertad de alguien, de algún opositor que ha sido injustamente encarcelado, golpeado y que no se sabe en qué lugar está.
On many occasions, we have been able to transmit from one corner of the island to the other about an activist who has disappeared or arrested, who otherwise there would be no news about.
Y gracias a esa comunicación, gracias a esa comunicación, los hermanos de la oposición nos activamos para salir a las calles a reclamar su libertad, que aparezca nuestro hermano que está desaparecido.
And thanks to that kind of communication, we're able to go out into the streets and to demand freedom for those who have been arrested.
You know, I was, I'm relatively new on the board, so I was just learning about the funding. But given that we don't even have mail exchange, not much, I don't think, between our two countries, I was surprised that you were even able to get any aid from the United States.
Es claro y es evidente que de un familiar a otro sí se reciben ayudas.
Yes, it is very clear that you can receive aid from one family member to another.
Por eso es tan importante el exilio cubano también.
That's why the Cuban exile community is so important.
And then also about your travel, are you able to go back and forth between the United, I mean, I know you're here today for this, I don't know if you've been here for a while, but you're able to go back and forth?
Bien, yo estoy aquí como refugiada política.
In my case, I'm a refugee in the United States.
Okay, I see.
Sí, ya entiendo.
But you guys are going back, right?
Pero usted-
Didn't you mention that you were,
Yes, he says he's going to respond.
oh, okay.
En este momento podemos salir algunos activistas de derechos humanos gracias a las ONG y a las personas de buena voluntad que nos hacen llegar la ayuda para poder llegar acá.
At this moment in time, some activists are able to leave Cuba and come back thanks to the aid that we receive from some NGOs.
Pero esto no significa que estamos libres, puesto que hay muchos activistas de derechos humanos que el gobierno cubano le impide llegar aquí de una forma temporal.
This doesn't mean that we're free, because there are many activists who are impeded from leaving Cuba by the regime.
Sure, no, I mean, I was just surprised, anybody, was that, you know, I understand, especially financially, But the fact that you were able, because they know what you're doing, right?
Sí, quiero ponerle un ejemplo. Tenemos expresos,
I want to give you an example. There
Dos.
are former political prisoners.
12 hombres del grupo de los 75 que han sido escarcelados y tienen medida cautelar
There-
o tienen licencia extrapenal y no pueden salir temporal.
There are at least 12 former political prisoners who are part of a larger group of 75 who were released from prison but are still under house arrest and they can't leave Cuba.
Un ejemplo más reciente, tenemos a la dama de blanco Sonia Alfonso Álvarez, que fue escarcelada el día 9 de diciembre cuando fue a solicitar su pasaporte. Este viernes se le ha sido negado.
And I give you a more recent example. One of the ladies in white, Sonia Alfonso Alvarez, she was released on 9 December, and when she went to request her passport, it was denied to her.
Yo llamo reformilla migratoria a lo que Raúl Castro hizo en el 2013, mientras que él pueda seleccionar quién entra y sale del país. No son reformas migratorias.
I label the change that Raúl Castro did in 2013 as a petty reform. As long as they can determine who leaves, who enters, there's no freedom to travel.
Okay, and then finally, because I promised the chair I would be quick, I wanted to ask Mr. Thale, if you could talk about some of the, in the president's proposals, it's going to allow more economic exchange between our two countries. And I'm wondering what impact you think that might have, especially on the freedom or lack thereof of people to open up their own businesses. I mean, I understand there's some businesses like people that have restaurants in their homes and stuff like that. I don't know to what extent there's extensive free enterprise, but do you think that that is ultimately going to assist the development of that?
Thank you for the question, Congresswoman. So Cuba, 10 years ago, about 90% of the population of the Cuban workforce worked for the state or state businesses. Today, that's probably down to about 70%. The number of people who work for themselves in small businesses has gone up to from about 150,000 4 years ago to about 500,000 now. So there has been a substantial increase. Some of those businesses are quite successful and have a dozen, 15 employees. The vast majority of them are small vendors, small restaurants, people selling and dealing out of their home. I think that the opening we've offered to the private sector, it's going to take a while for that to work through, but it is clear that it will strengthen the capacity of those businesses and the creation of a small private business sector. I think we'll see change in that area over time.
Thank you. I yield back my time.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, just let me introduce Basilio Guzman, who was a political prisoner for 22 years and was subjected to heinous torture, unbelievable acts of brutality. Thank you for joining us at today's hearing and for your courage. I'd also like to introduce Yuris Tamara Perez Aquiela, who is the wife of Túnez, if you would, and a leader in her own right. She founded the Rosa Parks Civil Rights Movement and has spoken out bravely along with her husband. Thank you for joining us at today's hearing as well. I'd like to ask a few opening questions and yield to my distinguished colleagues. First of all, if you could, Mr. Artunez, if you wouldn't mind, speaking to the issue of the mistreatment of Afro-Cubans. I've learned over the last several years, and I have been working human rights issues. I've been in Congress 35 years. I've been working human rights issues for 35 years. But there's been I think, a lack of attention given to the additional mistreatment endured by Afro-Cubans. All people who aspire to freedom and democracy, the full weight of tyranny comes down upon them. But there also seems to be a further differentiation and focus, negative bias, prejudice against Afro-Cubans. If you could speak to that.
Sí, mira, bueno, aprecio sinceramente el interés y la preocupación que tienen todos acá
I appreciate your concern and your interest that all of you have shown today
para con la causa de Cuba.
for the cause of Cuba.
A unas personas que apoyan o discrepan con la política de Barack Obama
Even,
en la isla.
And I appreciate that concern even from those who are in agreement with Barack Obama's policy.
Antes de responder concretamente las preguntas, quisiera hacer una reflexión.
If before I answer your question directly, I'd like to reflect upon
Y
something.
es que con todo el respeto que merece uno de los panelistas,
And with all due respect for one of the panelists,
sentí hace un rato un dolor muy fuerte.
I felt great pain a few moments ago.
Me sentí muy molesto
I felt ill at ease
al escuchar de su boca, la situación de Cuba no es bastante mala.
to listen from you that Cuba's situation is bad, but not that bad.
La situación de Cuba no es bastante mala. Reitero,
The situation in Cuba is bad, but not bad, not that bad.
no sé, con el mayor respeto que merece, qué entiende él por situación mala,
I really don't understand, with all due respect, what you mean by a situation that is bad, but not that bad.
y en los momentos que él habla, pienso en las madres cubanas
And when you say this, I think about Cuban mothers
que se acuestan llorando porque no tienen que llevarle a sus hijos a la boca el día siguiente.
who go to sleep crying because they have no food for their kids the next day.
Pienso en las miles y miles de jóvenes que tienen que prostituir su cuerpo
I think of those thousands of young women who've had to
para
become
poder alimentar
prostitutes,
a sus hijos, a su familia.
who've had to become prostitutes so they can feed their families.
Pienso en el nulo poder adquisitivo que tiene el cubano de a pie.
I think of the fact that Cubans can barely afford to
Pienso en la
live.
disparidad de vida entre los jerarcas del régimen y el pueblo.
I think about the gross inequality between the regime leaders and the people.
Pienso en la pobreza moral, espiritual y sobre todo económica que padece nuestro pueblo.
I think about the moral, spiritual, and economic poverty of the people of Cuba.
Puede ser que Cuba tenga algún logro en la educación,
There may be some educational achievement in Cuba,
pero cuando se trata de una educación totalmente adoctrinada,
but when we're talking about a system of education which consists of indoctrination,
cuando jóvenes como los tres que estamos acá, que venimos de Cuba, no pudimos tener acceso a la educación superior por nuestros criterios políticos.
when all three of us who are here were discriminated from pursuing higher education as youth because we had different political ideas,
Creo que eso destroza, con el todo respeto que usted merece, su argumento.
I think that invalidates, with all due respect, your argument.
Cuba es muy cierto que es una potencia médica, es verdad,
It's true, Cuba is a medical power,
pero no para Sara Marta Fonseca, ni para Berta Soler, ni para Iris Tamara.
but Cuba is not a medical power for Sara Marta Fonseca,
Cuba
for
hay-
Berta Soler, or for Jorge Luis García Pérez.
En Cuba hay muchas clínicas altamente sofisticadas que quizás no tengan nada que envidiarle a las que están en los países desarrollados como este.
Cuba has many sophisticated hospitals and clinics which are first world
Pero esas
status.
clínicas como la Cira García y el CIMEC son dolarizadas.
But those clinics, like the Cira Garcia or the CIMEX, are only for people who can pay with dollars.
Para turistas oportunistas o para la clase élite del poder.
They're only for tourists or for the elite.
Escuché también de usted decir que el problema de derechos humanos no es tan serio.
I also heard you say that the human rights situation is not that grievous.
Qué dolor para este joven escuchar ese argumento.
How hard it must be for somebody like Ciro Alexis Garcia to listen
Que
to
no
that.
es tan serio estar un joven en la prisión por sacar un cartel que pedía libertad y derecho a los respetos humanos.
Is it not that bad to be in prison merely for displaying a sign calling for freedom?
No es tan serio el caso de Ernesto Borges Pérez.
Is it not that bad to be in prison like Ernesto Borges?
Y quiero hacer énfasis en este caso.
And I want to emphasize this case.
El señor Barack Obama logró la excarcelación de 3 espías confesos
Mr. Barack Obama released 3 confessed spies from the U.S.
que atentaron contra la seguridad y estabilidad de este país.
who were conspiring against the stability and the security of this country.
Sin embargo, este joven tiene 30 años de sanción
However, this young man was sentenced to 30 years in prison,
y lleva 18 presos. ¿Por qué?
and he spent 18 years in prison
Por evitar que 26 espías castristas fueran enviados aquí a asesinar y a desestabilizar el país.
because he passed on information to the U.S. about 26 Cuban spies who were being sent to the U.S. to conspire against the U.S.
La situación de Cuba no es tan seria, es extremadamente seria.
Now, Cuba's situation is not that Cuba's situation is not that bad. It's extremely bad.
Y sin pretender romper el protocolo, quisiera responder cronológicamente algunas de las reflexiones realizadas por usted en un principio.
And if you will allow me, I want to comment upon your
Le voy a
reflections.
ayudar al honorable presidente de esta sala una de sus preguntas o reflexiones.
And I want to address directly what you asked.
¿Por qué no puede entrar usted en Cuba y en las cárceles?
I want to ask, why is that you can't go into Cuba? Why is that you can't travel to Cuba?
Porque de hacerlo verá negros y negros, una población penal extremadamente abarrotada de negros.
Because if you're allowed to go into a Cuban prison, all you will see are black people, hundreds of black men.
hombres lanzándose de azoteas,
You will see men who would rather jump from a rooftop
perros mordiendo a inocentes,
and commit suicide, or you will see men being bitten by dogs.
el golpe de palo, el escarnio,
You will see the beatings. You will see the persecution.
altas y desproporcionadas sanciones,
You will see these very far-flung sentences, these very high sentences,
así como decenas y decenas de presos políticos de los cuales prácticamente no se hizo mención en las negociaciones.
you will see dozens and dozens of political prisoners who weren't even mentioned in these negotiations.
Quiere llegar a Cuba, pues solamente diga que no va a visitar las cárceles, que no va a reunirse con la oposición.
If you want to go to Cuba, simply tell them that you're not going to visit the prisons and that you don't want to meet with dissidents.
Creo que esto responde en alguna medida las preguntas que me han hecho.
I think this addresses what you asked about discrimination in Cuba.
Mr. Ortiz, thank you very, very much. Let me, you know, the Washington Post has done several editorials very, very critical of President Obama's opening up or moving towards opening up diplomatic relations or further relations. And they made a very, very salient point that I would just like to underscore here, and that is that we're repeating mistakes that have been made in the past. When Bill Clinton went to Vietnam and opened up or opened up relations with Vietnam, which followed very quickly with the bilateral trade agreement under President Bush, many of us said it was a mistake not to get human rights reforms, durable reforms first, and then move to the diplomatic recognition followed by an economic relationship. The Post points out that it is the way Mr. Obama has gone about this that is a mistake. Not reform first, but moving in to provide a lifeline, as one of their editorials pointed out, a lifeline to a dictatorship at a time when Venezuela is less capable to provide funding. And we know several years ago that funding from what was then the Soviet Union ceased to exist. A very opportune time to press the case for human rights, and we blew it when it came to Vietnam. I have had passed in this Congress, 3 Congresses and counting, the Vietnam Human Rights Act. The majority leader, now minority leader, Harry Reid, would not put it up for a vote, but 3 times bipartisan legislation with clear benchmarks towards Vietnam, because they are in a race to the bottom with China and North Korea. Cuba is already there. And yet we're moving in having not learned a single lesson from those failed openings where they get stronger, the dictatorship becomes further empowered. I firmly disagree, Mr. Thale, with your comment about isolation. We're talking about financially enabling a lifeline, to quote the Washington Post. And one of their editorials was President Obama's betrayal of Cuban Democrats. Many of those, some have already been rearrested that were let out. And of course, as I pointed out, there were just under 200 that we know of that have been arrested in the last several weeks alone. So that has been the game that Fidel Castro plays. He lets people in and out, but always this sort of Damocles hanging over the entirety of this dictatorship. But I have a question, if I could, on an issue, and then I'll yield to my good friend and colleague, Chairwoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen. I have been working, and I am a leader in the area of combating human trafficking. I'm the prime author of what's known as the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000. It is our landmark law to combat modern-day slavery. Well, the State Department has a Trafficking in Persons Office created by my law, and they put an annual listing of countries using what we contained in the law called minimum standards. The worst designation is Tier 3. Cuba, again, is a Tier 3 country, an egregious violator of trafficking with full complicity of the Castro brothers and the rest of that government, making money hand over fist by forcible prostitution and by child prostitution. I was, in 2004, Frank Calzone had documentation and was working in the Human Rights Commission in Geneva. He had documentation of the complicity of this dictatorship with child prostitution and child exploitation, and he was knocked out cold, hit in the face by Cuban so-called diplomats, thugs, Freedom House came to his defense and made a very strong statement against it because he was bearing witness to that ugly truth of child prostitution. And again, the State Department chronicles this. Cuban citizens have been subject to forced prostitution outside of Cuba as well. And then child prostitution and child sex tourism continues. In the hotels that were mentioned by Mr. Clausen and in other places, renting children. That is the reality of what this barbaric regime is all about. They make money by child sex tourism. And again, it's not an open society. I would love for investigators to be able to go there and, of course, look to bring charges against those, including higher-ups in the government. Tier 3 country. I'd like to ask any of our witnesses if they'd like to speak to the despicable record of Cuba when it comes to the modern-day slave trade. It's not that bad. I'll go to you.
Bueno, es muy importante que sepan que el gobierno cubano promueve, estimula la prostitución infantil en Cuba.
It is very important for you to know that the Cuban government promotes child prostitution in Cuba.
El gobierno cubano sabe que hay muchos jóvenes que no van a las escuelas y están buscando el turismo para poder llevar dinero y comida a su casa.
The Cuban government knows that there are many youths who don't go to school but who are on the streets looking for ways to make money to feed their families.
En estos mismos momentos es penoso, pero tengo que decirlo.
It is shameful to say, but I must say,
La semana pasada oí a unas jóvenes que dicen que se estaban guardando, preparando para cuando entrara el turismo norteamericano, prostituirse porque ellos daban más dinero.
just last week there was a group of young women saying that they were organizing themselves and preserving themselves for when American tourism arrived so they could sell themselves to American tourists.
Si vamos a llamar empoderamiento cientos de cubanos jóvenes que van a prostituirse,
If we call the prostitution of hundreds of Cuban youths empowerment,
si vamos a llamar empoderamiento el cubano que sale a trabajar y a robarse la producción para llevar dinero a su casa,
if we call Cubans who are going to try and steal and take from their places of work in order to feed their families, if we call this empowerment,
si vamos a llamar empoderamiento mujeres como las damas de blanco que salen a ejercer su libertad de movimiento y asociación en las calles y son golpeadas y arrastradas por la fuerza represiva,
if we call empowerment that women like the ladies in white who go out in the streets to demand freedom and respect for human rights and are beaten, if we call this empowerment,
si vamos a llamar empoderamiento cuando el gobierno cubano lleva a maestros a la escuela que son necesitan todavía ellos educarse,
if we call empowerment, the Castro regime fills schools with teachers who are poorly trained,
donde hijos de activistas de derechos humanos son suspendidos en las escuelas, son suspendidos en las pruebas porque sus padres son activistas de derechos humanos.
the children of human rights activists are failed in their tests and they're damaged or harmed in their studies because their parents are involved in human rights activity.
Realmente esto no es lo que queremos para Cuba.
This is not what we want for Cuba.
El gobierno cubano está buscando que Cuba tenga el mismo modelo chino.
The Cuban government is trying to build the Chinese model in Cuba.
El gobierno cubano está buscando oxígeno.
The Cuban government is looking for, repeat the word?
El gobierno cubano está buscando oxígeno.
The Cuban regime needs oxygen and needs air.
El gobierno cubano lo que quiere para Cuba es un sistema económico capitalista
The Cuban government wants a capitalist economic system
y un sistema político comunista.
and a communist political system.
Llevamos más de 50 años y no podemos permitir esto.
We can't tolerate this after over half a century.
Primero derechos humanos y después economía.
Human rights first, economy second.
El pueblo de Cuba está muriéndose de hambre y no es por el gobierno norteamericano.
The Cuban people are suffering hungry not because of the American government.
El pueblo de Cuba está muriéndose de hambre porque el sistema comunista no funciona.
The Cuban people are hungry because the communist system doesn't work.
No queremos una sucesión de mandatos.
We don't want a succession in Cuba. We don't want a continuation of the regime.
No queremos dinastía,
We don't want a dynasty in power.
queremos elecciones libres.
We want free elections.
Realmente los recursos que son para el pueblo de Cuba,
The resources that are for the people of Cuba,
Raúl Castro los coge para fortalecer, equipar y perfeccionar su maquinaria represiva contra el pueblo de Cuba y contra la sociedad civil.
the resources that are meant for the Cuban people, Raul Castro will take to strengthen the repressive apparatus.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
I yield to Chairwoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen.
Thank you so much, Mr. Smith. Thank you for calling this important hearing. Thank you to our witnesses who are victims of the Castro regime for being here today. Antunes, Berta, Sara, Iris, I'm humbled to be in your presence. Some of you live in Cuba, others are here now but have family in Cuba, so I know that you are very brave for being here today. This is sort of an insurance policy that you have offered them, Mr. Smith, because by being here today, perhaps they will have some degree of protection that those other figures, as brave as you are, won't have. So I know you worry about them. Thank you for holding up their photos. Thank you for describing the current dismal human rights situation in my native homeland of Cuba. And I wanted to just give this statement and then ask you some questions. How has the regime's treatment of its critics changed since December 17th? Do you think this announcement will force changes? I'll ask you to respond in a minute. How does the regime manipulate the press here in the United States and elsewhere, and visitors and tourists on the island that may come back here with a distorted picture of what's going on? This morning I did a radio interview, and the reporter says, I know Cuba. I was there for a week. Antunes and Berta, you will hear, you've heard from some today, that Castro's Cuba is a picture of equality, that the regime supports everyone's rights, including the rights of Afro-Cubans. Thank you for pointing out the kind of apartheid government that exists there, especially the medical apartheid and the prison apartheid. Thank you for pointing out the mistreatment of the Afro-Cubans. And Mr. Thale, you testified that the picture in Cuba is not a uniformly grim one. The fact that you essentially say, hey, look, it could be worse. I suppose so. It can always be worse. And it's particularly disgusting, and it's an affront to the panelists who sit beside you and the countless number of people who have been jailed for expressing their God-given and fundamental human rights, to thousands who have died trying desperately to flee Cuba. This is such a worker's paradise where the situation is not that bad that I see people in my district, they wash ashore trying to flee Castro's Cuba. Even now, as all of these negotiations have taken place, 40% increase in the number of Cubans fleeing this situation that is not that bad. People who live in constant fear because the regime is watching them closely, or the millions more who have managed to flee over the years. You're repeating the Castro propaganda about good public health care. These are the constituents that I represent now. They fled Cuba. You should come to Miami and meet with my constituents and have them tell you about this great medical care. I've seen it in the Michael Moore documentary, Sicko. Where does that exist? Where is that medical care for these folks? I know that if you're a tourist, you will certainly be treated well. It's good propaganda. Public education, advancement of LGBT rights. The real truth is that the good medical care is just a show for the Castro regime. reserved only for the regime officials and the tourists. I know because I represent that community. My district is overwhelmingly Cuban Americans. I don't know how I got elected. It's just a fluke, I guess. But these are the folks who vote for me and who vote for Mario and vote for Carlos Curbelo, vote for Marco Rubio, vote for Bob Menendez and Albio Sires. But we know that the system of medical care in Cuba, and for the vast majority of Cubans, they have no access to the system. Please interview the people as they get off the planes from Cuba. Dr. Oscar Elias Bisset, thrown in jail for disclosing the truth about abortions being committed and the poor hospital conditions. And Mr. Smith has brought that out time and time again. Life expectancy rates and other healthcare statistics in Cuba, where do we get those from? You're doing a survey in Cuba? They're manipulated by the regime. It is unbelievable that we swallow this. And you've fallen into the trap, Mr. Thale, that the Castro set for you, willing to swallow the regime propaganda, spread it to them, to give it legitimacy. They're utter falsehoods and repeat it over and over again to the detriment of the truth, of the public, and especially the Cuban people. It's such a great system, the public education system. As these witnesses have pointed out, it's a public indoctrination program. Have you seen the textbooks? Meant to stymie free thinking and free will. Progress on sexual discrimination, please. I have met with prominent Cuban LGBT advocates, Wendy Iriepa Diaz and Ignacio Estrado Cepero, and they have vigorously dismissed the claims of progress on LGBT. They've condemned the continued denial of human rights for everyone. The Castro regime will protect LGBT rights if you agree with the Castro regime. They will protect anyone who agrees with the Castro regime. But be an LGBT individual in Cuba and speak out against the regime. See how far that gets you. So my first question to you, Mr. Thale, is can you honestly look at your co-panelist in the eye and tell them that the picture in Cuba isn't a particularly grim one? It's not that bad. And that the torture, the beatings, the imprisonment, the harassment that they have had to endure isn't particularly grim. Your 17 years in prison, not particularly grim, not that bad. The beatings of Las Damas de Blanco, including 13 who were detained on Sunday, but the press doesn't cover that anymore because they want to have their bureau in Havana. And you talk about how the engagement has led to the release of political prisoners. You point to this false list of 53 as part of the December 17th announcement. But what happens the next day when we're not looking, when people aren't looking for Cuba, when the press has done their stand-ups and they've got their bureau, they don't want to lose that bureau. Oh, no. How many more of these dissidents are rearrested? How many more are detained? How many of the 53 had been released prior to the agreement, or are you under the fallacy that that 53 list is authentic? Haven't some of them been rearrested? And what about those other ones who never made it to the list? Why 53? There were 9,000 in prison last year, according to reports. And how about those individuals that Mr. Antunes held up? What's happened to them? The modus operandi of the regime is to do this bait and switch, to release some prisoners out of expediency, to promulgate its propaganda, and then when the spotlight is off, rearrest those people or find new ones to throw in jail. But now, they don't even have to wait until the press attention is out. Like I said, just on Monday, a young rapper was put in jail for a year for dangerousness, which could lead to a crime. How can you justify that? How can you say, oh, we've liberated these 53, and it's not that bad? I want to ask you, to our panelists here, Mr. Antunes, has it not been that bad for you? When you were in jail, not that bad, not that grim. And Berta,
Bueno,
and Sara.
yo creo que la situación el cuadro violatorio de derechos humanos dentro de Cuba
I think that the situation with the violation of human rights in Cuba
es mucho más difícil que lo que pudiéramos nosotros narrarlo.
is much worse than we can describe.
Se ha escrito mucho, se ha